same thing. I was impressed by Brie Bella, and she could still factor in to the main event of WrestleMania this year because of her retirement of her husband and, of course, of how emotional that was a couple of weeks ago. I think we're less than 2 weeks removed from Daniel Bryan's retirement. So that's why there was a lot of expectation for Brie Bella in this championship match with Charlotte. And obviously they had to put someone in the ring against Charlotte for Fastlane to make the Divas Championship division seem a little bit more unpredictable going into the biggest event of the year. But I think the Divas division is definitely going to have its crowning achievement when we see these two Divas go one-on-one for the championship, even if Becky Lynch and Brie Bella don't factor into the main event of the Divas Championship at WrestleMania this year. I think it's going to be a great match, and it's really going to go a long way in redefining what this Divas division is really all about. Was I impressed with Sasha Banks on NXT? You had better believe I was impressed by Sasha Banks on NXT, and that's why I immediately started saying that we had to bank on Sasha for the future, playing on her in-ring name, Sasha Banks, because she's someone who you really got to believe in and really have to be convinced that she has a promising future in professional wrestling. That's why I've been writing about her from my column in this corner with Jonathan Clarke, talking about how they're finally pushing Sasha Banks more than what they've been pushing her for the last number of months. And I think it's more noticeable and obviously really apparent that Sasha Banks wants that Divas Championship and wants to leave an everlasting impression on all the women in the division and even Divas who are coming into the division. I think that really Sasha Banks is a transcender and an example setter for what the division is really supposed to be about, because she's going a long way in redefining it. I was really impressed also by the debuts of people like Paige and Charlotte, because they also went a long way in redefining what this division is about, especially when we had faction warfare between Team Bad, Team Bella, and Team PCB. I really appreciated the faction warfare and how they were a part of this Divas Revolution. And if there ever was a match to represent what this revolution, this entire revolution, which has not gone without endorsement from Stephanie, is supposed to be all about, this match is really what this revolution has been representing for the last number of months, and the pinnacle the Divas division has been striving to get to for a really long time. Now, who do I predict to win this match? I'm hoping it's going to be Sasha Banks, but it wouldn't surprise me none if Charlotte's reign as champion was prolonged, because of how Ric Flair has had a huge influence on a lot of things that Triple H and Stephanie have done over the last at least 6 months. And with Ric Flair's role in WWE obviously being secured, obviously they have something in the future planned for people like Charlotte and Ric Flair. She tries to remodel herself after her father and be the mirror image of her father. Obviously, it wouldn't surprise me none if her reign was prolonged, but Sasha Banks is obviously definitely over with wrestling fans, and she is definitely one of the top 5 favorites to be Divas Champion who have been uncrowned for a very long time. If there ever was an uncrowned Divas Champion right now who's obviously really apparent in the division, it obviously is Sasha Banks. She's really standing out. And if you looked up the definition of a consummate worker in the Divas division in terms of women's wrestling, in that dictionary you would probably see a picture of Sasha Banks. She is really the definition of a consummate worker. Now, I don't really approve of a lot of her posts on her Facebook fan page or some of the stuff she tweets out on her Twitter, because it's really weird. Some of the photos and the videos that she's posting of herself or something having to do professional wrestling in the way of promotion. I don't really agree with a lot of her posts, and sometimes she seems weirder than a lot more of the divas that are posting stuff throughout social media. But even though with how weird Sasha Banks seems on time, with her style, with her ring approach, with everything, approaching her character, I think that she would be a great representative of the Divas division, because you look at her in terms of an athletic wrestler. I mean, she is extremely athletic, and some of the things that she does are things you wouldn't expect someone of her abilities to be able to do. I mean, it's amazing. The bank statement, how she sets up for that move, and then she transitions from the setup into the move of this bank statement. I mean, it's incredible. She is a real technically sounded wrestler. She's both very athletic in the way of speed and agility, and she's also very technically sounded, which is something that we haven't seen in years in the Divas division. I mean, the last person that I can remember being this technically sound would be someone like Natalya Neidhart, and we know how far Natalya Neidhart went because of how technically sounded she was and just her reputation coming from the Hart family legacy with professional wrestling. So this is the first technically sounded diva that we have seen in a really long time, and obviously WWE are taking advantage of this with how many opportunities they are throwing the way of Sasha Banks, and obviously responding to these "We Want Sasha" chants, which are getting louder every single week, especially on the tours of internationality with WWE. Everywhere they go, from the US to Canada to the UK, these chants are getting louder, and even on editions of Raw and SmackDown, either live or for TV tapings, they're getting louder, and WWE creative are finally responding to these chants and giving us what we want. Again, reiterating the fact of how wrestling fans are some of the smartest people in the wrestling business who are never given enough credit. And if they were given more credit, more things like Sasha Banks versus Charlotte would be happening all the time outside of, say, Paige versus Charlotte, which I'm tired of having seen with how many incredible divas you have in the division never being given an opportunity, like Becky Lynch, the Irish ass kicker, which I didn't fuck up that time in saying. That's a really catchy catchphrase for someone like Becky Lynch. It's really hard to roll off the tongue, but she is a really talented wrestler, and I think more opportunities need to be handed her way, which is why it wouldn't surprise me none if we saw a triple threat match, upping the ante from Sasha Banks versus Charlotte to a triple threat match where Sasha would face Charlotte and Becky Lynch for that Divas Championship, with obviously Sasha Banks probably being the one coming away from it, and a few being derived from Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch for that championship in the fallout of WrestleMania 32. Then you have the returning of Nikki Bella and Brie Bella factoring in there as well, and probably even more returns in the division, probably even AJ Lee, which could surprise us all in the fall of the WrestleMania 32. There are a lot of things in the way of predictions that could be made in the fall of this, but right now, in terms of the WrestleMania 32 card, this is the match that looks the most impressive on paper, and this is a match that you cannot go wrong with, which is why I really applaud WWE Creative for really putting this match out there, because this is a different kind of match, and it's something different from what we've been seeing over the last 4 or 5 months, even the last 6 months, half of a year. We've seen the same thing reiterated with Charlotte and Sasha Banks all the time, or Charlotte and Becky Lynch, whatever the case may have been in the division. It was the same thing happening all the time, the same kind of champion, the same kind of result at a pay-per-view where we'd see weeks of promotion for a Divas Championship match, and the same kind of result with the champion always retaining the title in the way of AJ or Brie Bella or Nikki Bella being champion. It'd be Nikki Bella, say, as your defending champion, going into a pay-per-view against someone like Natalya Neidhart, and she'd be the one coming away with a victory, coming up and cutting these promos about how she was the best. And we're seeing the same kind of thing happening here with Charlotte. She's going into Divas Championship matches at pay-per-views and always coming away with the victory. She has a different challenger every couple of weeks for that championship, defending it at least once a month. So obviously this is something different, and obviously this is something to be really excited for, and that's why people, so many people, are getting in on the conversation about this match. And then you sit back and you wonder why the Facebook fan page of World Wrestling Entertainment has over 30 million subscribers, more than the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, all combined. It's because of how ridiculous WWE seems on times, with The Undertaker versus Shane McMahon being offered to us as wrestling fans, which I'll get into more on the conversation about in the coming weeks on my radio show and for my written column in this corner with Jonathan Clarke, because this is really ridiculous, and you have no idea how ridiculous I think this sounds. So that's why I'm going to be writing about it a lot on my website and throwing up a lot of video blogs on this one, because I think this is ridiculous, and the most ridiculous main event you could have had for WrestleMania 32 out of everything you could have put together at the last minute for WrestleMania. A gray-haired Shane McMahon against The Undertaker. This is really ridiculous. But apart from that, Sasha Banks versus Charlotte, at least it's something different, and it's something to be excited for. And if you have a thought on it, you can get in on the conversation in the comments of this video at Jonathan Clarke 22 on my YouTube channel by subscribing. You can tweet me on Twitter at Jonathan Clarke 1, and you can get in on the conversation on my Facebook page at HEW Entertainment and let me know what's up, because we're just a couple of weeks away from WrestleMania 32, and is this what you really want to be faced with under these circumstances, with control of Monday Night Raw, basically the entire WWE, in the words of Vince McMahon, basically saying that Raw is the only show that's actually relevant and actually one that's to be taken serious in WWE last night on Raw. That's one thing that stood out when we saw both the gray-haired Vince and Shane face-to-face in the ring, was the fact that Raw was the only relevant show in WWE. At least they were blunt about the ratings and stuff. I think wrestling needs to be more blunt about a lot of things going on behind closed doors like they were last night. At least they came out about the ratings, and now WWE have been driven into the ground because about Triple H and Stephanie have been running the show. And this is what I've been saying for the last at least 6 months on my YouTube channel. This had to stop with Shane McMahon and Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. And obviously it's all coming out in the open now, and that's something I really appreciate. And I wish that wrestling was more blunt in weeks than what it has been. And obviously they're all coming out with it now. So hopefully something will come full circle in the fallout of WrestleMania 32, which I'll get in on the conversation about in the coming weeks. So make sure you get in on the conversation about everything going on, and let me know what your thoughts are on this Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker. It's not my choice of a WrestleMania 32 main event, but it is what we are faced with, and that's why I'm extremely confident in Sasha Banks versus Charlotte for that Divas Championship. And no matter what the outcome of this match is, this is going to be a match that's going to be talked about for a really long time, and the careers of both Sasha Banks and Charlotte are looking far more promising than they ever have over the last number of weeks, which is why I really appreciate how Team Bad broke away from Sasha Banks and what Tamina and Naomi have been doing to promote them. Of course, the team of both Sasha Banks and Becky Lynch has been very impressive in recent weeks. What Team Bad are doing here with their breakup, being reiterated all the time with Tamina and Naomi pushing Sasha Banks as the breakout star from Team Bad, like Charlotte was the breakout star from Team PCB. Obviously, there's always one breakout star from whatever faction you're talking about. Really excited to see what the future has in store for Sasha Banks, and it all goes back to this breakup of Team Bad, which I'm really excited for, and possibly seeing a future reign as Divas Champion for Sasha Banks. We want Sasha. These chants are obviously really apparent and have not gone without recognition, and that's why a promising future for both of these divas seem to be in the very near future, and that's, if there's anything to be excited for, this is it, apart from Shane McMahon versus The Undertaker, which sounds more ridiculous than it's ever given credit for. I'm your host, Jonathan Clarke. Look forward to Sasha Banks versus Charlotte. I'm excited for it, and I hope you are too, and I will talk to you again next week.
Like what you hear? Tell us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Don't go anywhere. HEW Entertainment Radio will return with the latest news, music, interviews, discussion, and Jonathan Clarke next.
When something takes place in the world of professional wrestling, you know where to go. WrestleZone.com. WrestleZone.com. Covering all the latest breaking news daily. Interactive forums where you can chat with thousands of other wrestling fans.